This summer, when I visited Europe, I went to Austria and Czech Republic. First, I'll talk about my experience in Austria. In Austria, I went to Vienna, Salzburg, and Hallstatt. Vienna is the capital, and to be completely honest, felt a little like too much of a tourist trap. There were few locals, and even aside from that, stores seemed very tourist oriented. Although it contained a lot of tourist attractions, they weren't as grand as they were marketed out to be. In my experience, I had a lot more enjoyable time in Salzburg. In complete honesty, Salzburg was slightly less hectic compared to Vienna, and Vienna was just full of luxury stores that were obviously targeted towards tourists. And Salzburg was still a tourist oriented city, however, the architecture definitely had a wow factor that Vienna lacked, and it was nicely incorporated with nature. I also visited Hallstatt. Hallstatt was a very beautiful place. Despite lack of any architecture, the nature was just beautiful. And one thing I noticed while traveling in Austria is that the groceries were a lot better quality, especially in meats, dairy, and bread, and had reasonable price tags. Canadian groceries, in comparison, felt a lot more processed, and I also felt that Austria was the most richest country that I've visited so far. This was because the public facilities were extremely well managed, and because Austria is so small, I had lots of um, it it had lots to offer that could be easily explored, even if you just had like a few days. Next, I went to Prague, and I'd have to say that Prague is much bigger than Vienna. Czech Republic, in comparison to Austria, was less wealthy. Hotels were very cheap, and so was transportation. The people also didn't seem as arrogant, I suppose. I'm not sure how to describe it. I found that in Austria, a lot of people looked down upon Middle Eastern and Mediterranean people, likely because they were immigrants that paralleled the situation with Mexicans in America. Um, yeah, there was a very clear. It was very clear that there was somewhat of a discrimination compared when you saw how people treated these people from like other parts of Europe, Asia, or America compared to the aforementioned places. So that was really sad to see. And because Czech Republic wasn't as wealthy as Austria, their public facilities seemed a little ill maintained. And also, just before going to Europe, I was in Shanghai for a quick layover. I don't have any pictures, however, I want to comment on this experience because it was very interesting, even though I was only there for half a day. The first was that the smog was extremely thick. I didn't quite grasp the severity of air pollution until reaching Shanghai. It might have been just a bad day, perhaps, but the smog was extremely thick and it was visibly gray. Also, police um, did security checks on luggage every time you enter the subway, and it was quite intimidating. The Wi-Fi, surprisingly, was extremely low, and it was also inconvenient as lots of sites were blocked and one needed a Chinese phone number to access airport Wi-Fi. However, it seemed like others were using data as they were able to watch videos, while it took me at least 15 minutes to access an online website. The airport food was quite bad, not going to lie. However, outside the airport, the food was very enjoyable. Normally, I dislike authentic Chinese food because of the seasoning that's in it. However, what I experienced was very good. I had this really interesting dish that tasted sort of like noodles with very diluted tomato soup. I would have never expected such a combination of foods to taste so good.